He thought he was better than us. Until we left him 250 miles from home at 3 a.m. But the real lesson? Sometimes the best teachers are the ones who walk away. Picture this. You're part of a tight-knit crew of sound engineers, the kind of people who've spent years learning their craft the hard way. Lifting heavy equipment, troubleshooting in the dark, and earning respect one gig at a time. Then someone shows up who thinks they're already better than you, before they've even proven they can plug in a cable correctly. This is the story of how one weekend changed everything. A few years back, I landed what seemed like a straightforward gig. A weekend music festival with 10 bands per day, standard rock and roll fare. My boss assembled the perfect crew. Me, Dreadful Boris, Big Chris, and Hammer. But then he dropped some news that made us all pause. "We're taking an apprentice," he said. "Young guy, son of a local promoter." Now, I've always believed in helping the next generation. After all, that's how we all learned. Through mentorship, patience, and plenty of mistakes. What could go wrong? The trouble started the moment we climbed into the truck. This kid, let's call him the apprentice, spent the entire journey boasting about his abilities. "I'm already a really good sound engineer," he announced with the confidence of someone who'd never actually worked a real show. "I could probably show you guys a few tricks." The four of us exchanged glances. Experience had taught us to let actions speak louder than words, and we were about to get a masterclass in both. We arrived at the venue to face a mountain of work. Picture a 16-ton truck stuffed with 2 sound desks and about 22,000 watts of audio equipment. Amps, speakers, cables, and monitors that needed to be carefully unloaded, positioned, and connected. This wasn't just moving boxes. This was orchestrating a symphony of technology that would bring music to thousands of people. The first sign of trouble came when we started unloading. After helping with just 1 amp rack, 80 kilos of equipment on wheels, the apprentice made an announcement that left us speechless. "I'm a sound engineer, not a manual laborer," he said with stunning arrogance. Then simply walked away. For a moment, we just stared. Boris raised an eyebrow. Chris shook his head. Hammer, all 5 feet 9 inches of drop-dead gorgeous, tough as nails engineer, just smiled that dangerous smile we all knew meant trouble was brewing. But honestly, we didn't need the dead weight. We were used to this dance. 4 professionals who could move mountains when we worked together. An hour later, we had the entire rig stacked, secured, and ready for the intricate process of bringing it to life. That's when the apprentice reappeared, emerging from whatever hiding spot he'd found. "What can I do?" he asked, as if he hadn't just abandoned us during the hardest part of the job. I saw an opportunity for teaching. "I'm handling front of house," I said patiently. "Maybe you could help Hammer with the speaker cables." His response stopped time itself. "I don't take orders from women." The silence that followed was deafening. Boris, Chris, and I collectively held our breath, waiting for the explosion we knew was coming. You see, Hammer wasn't just our colleague. She was one of the finest audio engineers any of us had ever worked with, and she'd earned that respect through years of excellence and dedication. But instead of the verbal destruction we expected, Hammer just smiled sweetly and said, "Well, I'm sure you'll learn something useful." That smile should have been his first warning. 20 minutes later, I found Hammer staring at the amp racks with a look of resigned disbelief. Despite clearly labeled cables and color-coded ports, a system so simple a child could follow it, the apprentice had managed to create complete chaos. Cables were plugged into random ports, the signal chain was destroyed, and what should have been a 5-minute job had become a half-hour disaster. I found him wandering around with that same smug expression and tried to explain the problem gently. "Hey, if you're not sure about something, just ask one of us first. We're here to help you learn." His response was like a slap in the face. "I don't need to know all that technical stuff. I'm a sound engineer." The contradiction was so stunning that I actually blinked in confusion. Hammer, standing nearby, couldn't contain a snort of laughter. How do you respond to someone who claims to be a professional while refusing to learn their profession? "You have to understand how this works," I said, trying to maintain patience. "It's fundamental to the job, and since you're here to learn, you're just roadies," he interrupted with casual cruelty. What do you know? And with that charming declaration, he walked away again, leaving me speechless and Hammer barely containing laughter that could have shattered windows. The festival began, and with it came the real test of our skills. In situations like this, you rarely get proper sound checks. You have to rely on experience, intuition, and years of hard-won knowledge to set up each act perfectly from scratch. Our system was elegant in its simplicity. Boris and Chris handled monitors while Hammer and I managed front of house, switching off every 2 acts to save our hearing. Between sets, we'd handle stage setup, troubleshooting, and the endless logistics that keep a show running smoothly. We even gave the Apprentice a job helping with stage setups. Simple, straightforward, hard to mess up. We were wrong. After the first act finished, we had 15 minutes to completely reconfigure the stage for the next band. The incoming musicians gave us their requirements, we wrote up the microphone plot, and sent the Apprentice up to the front of house desk with the information. As I started checking each microphone, I noticed something wrong. I couldn't hear any of the vocal channels. None of them. Dreadful Boris came over the intercom with the same concern, then went to investigate the stage box where all the microphones connected. From 200 feet away, I heard him shout something that can't be repeated in polite company. "Do you know what that kid has done?" Boris's voice crackled through the headphones. "He's repatched all the vocal channels so the plugs on the stage box are lined up neatly one after the other." His words. My heart sank. What he'd done wasn't just wrong, it was catastrophically wrong. He'd destroyed our entire signal routing system because he thought it looked messy. It was like a mechanic rearranging engine parts because they weren't aesthetically pleasing. Boris quickly fixed the damage, and we got back on track. But the pattern was becoming clear. Every time we tried to include the Apprentice, disaster followed. Hours later, during my second shift at the front of house mixing desk, I was in my element. A beautiful jazz septet was on stage, the kind of sophisticated, dynamic music that makes an audio engineer's heart sing. Each instrument had its place, each voice its moment, and I was conducting it all through faders and equalizers. That's when the Apprentice appeared beside me. "When can I have a go at mixing?" he asked with breathtaking confidence. "I'm really good, you know." Despite everything, I still believed in teaching. The next act was an acoustic duo, 2 guitars, 2 voices. Simple, elegant, impossible to mess up catastrophically. Even the most inexperienced engineer should be able to handle it. I was about to learn how wrong I could be. I'd already set what I thought was a perfect baseline. Volumes balanced, equalizers set, everything ready for gentle fine-tuning. The Apprentice stepped up to the mixing desk like a conductor approaching an orchestra. The first thing he did was grab the master volume controls and crank them up by 15 decibels. The entire sound system instantly teetered on the edge of feedback, that ear-splitting shriek that occurs when amplified sound loops back into itself. In a split second, we went from perfect audio to potential disaster. I dove for the controls, pulling everything back before permanent damage occurred. "Listen," I said, trying to keep desperation out of my voice. "Balance the 2 vocals first, then the guitars. Leave the master volume alone." But he wasn't listening. Instead, he started making wild, inappropriate changes to the channel equalizers, boosting frequencies randomly, cutting others without reason. Again, the system began to squeal in protest. "Enough." I physically moved him aside and brought everything back under control, watching 2 days of careful preparation nearly destroyed in 30 seconds. The weekend continued with an endless parade of mistakes, attitude, and missed opportunities. Despite Hammer and my best efforts to teach, guide, and mentor, every lesson fell on deaf ears. The Apprentice remained convinced that he was superior to all of us, despite evidence to the contrary mounting by the hour. His constant commentary, snide remarks about how he was really a better engineer than any of us, created a toxic atmosphere that poisoned what should have been a celebration of music and teamwork. By Sunday evening, we were all exhausted, frustrated, and ready to go home. But first came the part every audio engineer dreads, the loadout. After 2 solid days of non-stop work, we now had to carefully dismantle everything we'd built, pack it back into the truck, and prepare for the long drive home. It's backbreaking work that requires everyone's participation. which is why we weren't surprised when the apprentice vanished again. For 2 hours, we lifted, wrapped, and loaded 22,000 watts of equipment while our apprentice was nowhere to be found. Our backs ached, our hands were raw, and our patience had finally reached its limit. By 3 a.m., the truck was loaded and ready. We'd given the apprentice every opportunity. 15 minutes of waiting, 20 minutes of searching the venue, calling his name, checking every possible hiding spot. Nothing. We stood around the truck in the cold morning air. For professionals who'd given their all for 2 days straight, staring at each other with the same thought. Forget him, someone said, and we did. The 250-mile drive home was quiet, each of us lost in our thoughts. We tried to be mentors, teachers, and guides. We'd offered patience, opportunity, and professional knowledge earned through years of hard work. In return, we'd received arrogance, disrespect, and abandonment when we needed help most. The next afternoon, my boss called. "Why did you leave the apprentice behind?" he asked, though his tone suggested he already suspected the answer. I gave him the essential details, the attitude, the mistakes, the final abandonment during loadout. There was a long pause. "He had to call his father at 3 a.m., the boss said finally. 500-mile round trip to come get him." Another pause. "You know what? I never liked that promoter anyway. Always late paying bills, always demanding special treatment. Next time he calls wanting equipment and crew, I think I'll tell him we're booked." Sometimes the most powerful lessons aren't taught, they're experienced. That night, stranded 250 miles from home at 3 a.m., the apprentice learned something no classroom could teach. Respect isn't given because of who your father is or what you think you deserve. It's earned through competence, humility, and understanding that every professional was once a beginner who listened, learned, and lifted their share of the load. The best teachers don't just show you how to succeed. Sometimes they show you the cost of failure. And sometimes walking away is the most important lesson of all.